What if I told you that 2,000 years ago, ancient philosophers had already cracked the code to building unbreakable self-discipline? What if the very struggles you face today, procrastination, lack of focus, giving in to temptations, were solved by men who faced wars, exile, and the collapse of empires? Welcome back to Daily Stoic Insights, where we dive deep into the timeless wisdom that can transform your life today. I'm your host, and if this is your first time here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we're about to embark on a journey that could fundamentally change how you approach self-discipline. Before we dive in, I want you to do something right now. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the one area of your life where you struggle most with self-discipline? Is it your diet, your work habits, your phone addiction? Be honest, because acknowledging our struggles is the first step toward conquering them. Today, we're exploring 10 powerful Stoic principles that will help you build the kind of self-discipline that doesn't rely on motivation, doesn't crumble under pressure, and actually gets stronger with every challenge you face. These aren't just philosophical concepts. They're practical tools that emperors, slaves, and everyone in between have used to master themselves and achieve greatness. The Stoics understood something that modern psychology is just beginning to rediscover. True self-discipline isn't about willpower. It's about wisdom. It's about understanding what you can and cannot control and directing all your energy toward what actually matters. So grab a notebook because you're going to want to write these down. Let's begin. Principle 1. The dichotomy of control. The foundation of all Stoic self-discipline begins with what Epictetus called the most important principle in philosophy: the dichotomy of control. This isn't just some abstract concept. It's the mental framework that will revolutionize how you approach every challenge in your life. Epictetus, who went from being a slave to becoming one of history's greatest teachers, put it simply: some things are within our power, while others are not. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think this means being passive or accepting defeat. Nothing could be further from the truth. What you can control: your thoughts, your judgments, your decisions, your actions, your responses to events, your effort, your character, and your values. What you cannot control: other people's actions, the weather, the economy, your past, other people's opinions of you, the results of your efforts, and external events. Now here's where the self-discipline magic happens. Most people waste enormous amounts of mental energy worrying about, fighting against, or trying to control things that are completely outside their influence. It's like trying to stop the rain by shouting at the clouds, exhausting and pointless. But when you truly internalize this principle, something incredible happens. All that scattered energy gets focused like a laser beam on what you actually can control. Suddenly, you're not depleted by anxiety about things beyond your influence. Instead, you're energized and focused on the actions that actually matter. Marcus Aurelius, literally the most powerful man in the world at his time, wrote in his personal journal, "Confine yourself to the present." He understood that even as emperor, his real power lay not in controlling external events, but in controlling his responses to them. Here's your practical application. Every time you feel frustrated, anxious, or overwhelmed, ask yourself, is this something I can control? If yes, take action. If no, let it go and redirect your energy to what you can influence. This simple practice will immediately increase your self-discipline because you'll stop wasting energy on the uncontrollable and start building momentum on what actually matters. Principle 2. Present moment awareness. The second principle that builds unshakable self-discipline is what the Stoics called prosoke, continuous attention to the present moment. But this isn't just mindfulness for the sake of relaxation. This is tactical awareness that gives you the power to choose your response in every situation. Think about when you break your diet, skip your workout, or procrastinate on important work. What's happening in those moments? You're either lost in regret about the past or anxiety about the future. You're not present enough to catch the moment when discipline is actually needed. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." But he wasn't talking about hedonistic pleasure. He was talking about the power that comes from being fully present to make conscious choices. Here's what most people don't understand about self-discipline. It's not built in the big moments. It's built in the thousands of micro moments throughout each day, where you choose between the easy path and the right path. But you can only make those conscious choices if you're actually present. The Stoics practiced what they call the discipline of desire, the ability to pause between stimulus and response. When you feel the urge to check your phone, eat that donut, or avoid that difficult conversation, there's a split second where you can choose. But only if you're present enough to catch it. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work. As a human being, he was training himself to be present to the choice in every moment. Here's your practice. Set random alarms throughout your day. When they go off, stop and ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling? What choice am I about to make? This simple practice of present moment awareness will give you back the power to choose your actions instead of just reacting automatically. The more present you become, the more you'll notice the gap between what happens to you and how you respond. And in that gap lies all your power to build the life you actually want. Principle 3. Voluntary discomfort. Now we come to one of the most powerful and misunderstood Stoic practices, voluntary discomfort. This isn't about punishing yourself or living like a monk. It's about systematically building your tolerance for discomfort so that when life inevitably gets difficult, you're prepared. Seneca regularly practiced what he called poverty training. He would sleep on the floor, eat simple food, and wear basic clothes, not because he had to, but because he chose to. He wrote, set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition that I feared? But here's the brilliant psychology behind this practice. Every time you voluntarily choose discomfort, you're proving to yourself that you're stronger than your circumstances. You're building what psychologists now call distress tolerance, the ability to handle difficult emotions and situations without falling apart or making impulsive decisions. Think about it. Every act of self-discipline requires you to choose temporary discomfort over immediate pleasure. Working out is uncomfortable. Eating healthy when you're craving junk food is uncomfortable. Having difficult conversations is uncomfortable. Doing important work instead of scrolling social media is uncomfortable. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs, which means when discomfort is unavoidable, they have no skills to handle it. They immediately reach for whatever will make them feel better in the moment: food, entertainment, shopping, substances, anything to escape the discomfort. But the Stoics understood that discomfort is not the enemy. It's the training ground. Every time you voluntarily choose discomfort, you're building the mental muscle that makes all other forms of self-discipline easier. Marcus Aurelius would sleep without blankets, even in winter, not because he enjoyed being cold, but because he was training himself to be comfortable with discomfort. He knew that as emperor, he would face countless uncomfortable situations, and he wanted to be prepared. Here's how you can apply this. Start small. Take cold showers. Skip a meal occasionally. Sleep on the floor once a week. Exercise when you don't feel like it. Have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Each time you choose discomfort voluntarily, you're making a deposit in your self-discipline bank account. The goal isn't to live in constant discomfort. It's to become someone who isn't controlled by the need to avoid discomfort. When you're comfortable being uncomfortable, you become unstoppable. Principle 4. The view from above. The fourth principle is what Marcus Aurelius called the view from above, the practice of zooming out to see your life, your problems, and your choices from a cosmic perspective. This isn't about making yourself feel small or insignificant. It's about gaining the clarity that comes from proper perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You can rid yourself of many useless things among those that disturb you, for they lie entirely in your imagination." When you're caught up in the drama of daily life, everything feels urgent and important. But when you step back and take the view from above, you gain the perspective to see what actually matters. Here's how this builds self-discipline. Most failures of self-discipline come from being too focused on immediate pleasure or immediate pain. You eat the donut because it will taste good right now. You skip the workout because it will be uncomfortable right now. You procrastinate because the task feels overwhelming right now. But when you take the view from above, you see the long-term consequences of your choices. You see how today's small decisions compound into tomorrow's reality. You see how your current struggles fit into the larger story of who you're becoming. The Stoics regularly practiced what they called the discipline of physics, contemplating their place in the larger cosmos. They would imagine themselves from the perspective of the stars, seeing their entire life as just a brief moment in the vast expanse of time and space. This wasn't meant to make them feel hopeless or nihilistic. Instead, it gave them incredible freedom. If your life is just a brief moment in cosmic time, why waste it on petty concerns? Why let temporary discomfort stop you from becoming who you're meant to be? Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." When you take the view from above, you see that your current struggles are not permanent states. They're temporary challenges that are shaping you into a stronger person. Here's your practice. When you're facing a difficult decision or struggling with self-discipline, ask yourself, how will I view this choice in 10 years? What would the wisest version of myself do in this situation? If I could see my entire life from above, what choice would clearly be the right one? This perspective shift is incredibly powerful because it connects your daily choices to your larger purpose and values. It helps you see beyond the immediate pleasure or pain to the person you're becoming through your choices. Principle 5. Negative visualization. The fifth principle might sound pessimistic at first, but it's actually one of the most psychologically sophisticated practices the Stoics developed. Negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum. This is the practice of imagining loss, setbacks, and challenges before they happen, not to become pessimistic, but to become prepared and grateful. Seneca wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster." The Stoics understood that one of the biggest obstacles to self-discipline is being caught off guard by difficulties. When we're unprepared for challenges, we're much more likely to make impulsive, undisciplined choices. But here's the genius of negative visualization. When you regularly imagine losing what you have or facing what you fear, two powerful things happen. First, you become genuinely grateful for what you currently have. Second, you mentally rehearse how you would handle difficult situations, which makes you much more resilient when they actually occur. Think about how this applies to self-discipline. If you've never imagined what it would be like to face a serious health crisis, you might not take your daily exercise seriously. If you've never considered what it would be like to lose your job, you might not develop the discipline to continuously improve your skills. If you've never imagined what it would be like to lose important relationships, you might not make the effort to be present and caring with the people you love. Marcus Aurelius regularly practiced negative visualization about his own death. He wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." This wasn't morbid thinking. It was a way of staying focused on what truly mattered and not wasting time on trivial concerns. The practice works because it activates what psychologists call defensive pessimism, imagining potential problems so you can prepare for them. But unlike neurotic worry, negative visualization is structured and purposeful. You imagine specific scenarios, consider how you would respond with virtue and wisdom, and then return to the present moment with greater appreciation and preparation. Here's how to practice this. Once a week, spend 10 minutes imagining losing something important to you: your health, your job, your relationships, your possessions. Don't dwell on the fear, but focus on two questions. How would I handle this situation with courage and wisdom? And how does imagining this loss make me more grateful for what I have right now? This practice builds self-discipline because it connects your daily choices to their long-term consequences. When you've imagined what it would be like to have a heart attack, that daily workout becomes much more important. When you've imagined what it would be like to lose your closest relationships, the discipline to be present and caring becomes much easier. Principle 6. Morning and evening reflections. The sixth principle is the practice of daily reflection, specifically morning preparation and evening review. This is how the Stoics turned philosophy from abstract ideas into practical daily habits that built unshakable self-discipline. Marcus Aurelius began each day by writing in what we now call his meditations, but these weren't just random thoughts. They were structured reflections designed to prepare his mind for the challenges ahead. He would remind himself of Stoic principles, anticipate potential difficulties, and set his intentions for the day. Seneca ended each day with what he called the examination of the day. He wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine the whole day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." But here's what makes this different from just journaling or positive thinking. The Stoics were specifically focused on building virtue and self-discipline. Their reflections weren't about feeling good. They were about becoming good. In the morning, they would ask questions like, what challenges might I face today? And how can I respond with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance? What opportunities will I have to practice virtue? What would the best version of myself do in the situations I'm likely to encounter? In the evening, they would review. Where did I act with virtue today? Where did I fall short of my ideals? What can I learn from today's experiences? How can I do better tomorrow? This daily practice builds self-discipline in several powerful ways. First, it keeps your values and goals at the front of your mind instead of letting them get buried under the urgency of daily life. Second, it helps you learn from your mistakes instead of just repeating them. Third, it creates accountability to yourself and your highest ideals. Most people live reactively. They wake up and just respond to whatever happens. But the Stoics lived proactively. They started each day with clear intentions and ended each day with honest reflection. Here's your practice. Spend 5 minutes each morning asking yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? What challenges might I face? And how can I respond with my highest values? Then spend 5 minutes each evening asking, how did I live up to my values today? What did I do well? What can I improve tomorrow? This simple practice will transform your self-discipline because it turns every day into a conscious practice of becoming who you want to be, rather than just drifting through life on autopilot. Principle 7. Virtue as the highest good. The seventh principle is perhaps the most radical and transformative. The Stoic belief that virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance is the only true good, and that everything else is indifferent. This isn't just philosophical theory. It's a practical framework that makes self-discipline infinitely easier. Here's why this is so powerful. Most people struggle with self-discipline because they're trying to balance competing goods. They want to be healthy, but they also want to enjoy delicious food. They want to be successful, but they also want to relax and have fun. They want to save money, but they also want to buy things they enjoy. This creates constant internal conflict and decision fatigue. Every choice becomes a struggle between different desires and values. But the Stoics solved this problem by establishing a clear hierarchy. Virtue, doing the right thing, being the kind of person you're proud to be, is the only thing that truly matters. Everything else, pleasure, comfort, external success, other people's opinions, is indifferent. This doesn't mean you can't enjoy these things when they're available, but it means they never take priority over virtue. And here's the beautiful result. When virtue is your highest value, self-discipline becomes much simpler. You're not constantly weighing competing goods. You're simply asking, what would virtue require in this situation? Marcus Aurelius wrote, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. He had access to every pleasure and luxury the Roman Empire could provide, but he understood that true satisfaction came from living according to virtue. Epictetus, who had experienced both slavery and freedom, taught that external circumstances could never touch your ability to choose virtue. He said, no one can hurt you without your permission. This principle builds self-discipline because it eliminates the internal conflict that exhausts most people. When you're clear that virtue is your highest value, the choice between the donut and the apple becomes simple, not because the apple tastes better, but because choosing the apple aligns with your commitment to temperance and self-care. When you're clear that virtue is your highest value, The choice between scrolling social media and doing important work becomes simple, not because the work is more fun, but because choosing the work aligns with your commitment to wisdom and excellence. Here's how to apply this. Identify the 4 cardinal virtues in your own life. What does wisdom look like in your daily choices? What does justice look like in how you treat others? What does courage look like when facing your fears? What does temperance look like in your habits and appetites? Then, when facing any decision, ask yourself, which choice aligns with virtue? Which choice makes me the kind of person I'm proud to be? This simple framework will make self-discipline much easier because you'll have a clear, consistent standard for all your choices. Principle 8. Memento Mori. The 8th principle is Memento Mori, remember death. This might seem morbid, but it's actually one of the most motivating and clarifying practices the Stoics developed. When you truly internalize the reality of your mortality, it becomes much easier to choose what matters over what's merely convenient or comfortable. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of death's inevitability. He wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." This wasn't because he was obsessed with death, but because remembering death helped him focus on life. Here's the psychology behind this practice. When you forget that your time is limited, it's easy to procrastinate, to put off important things, to waste time on trivial pursuits. But when you remember that every day is a gift that won't last forever, your priorities become crystal clear. Think about how this applies to self-discipline. If you had only 1 year to live, would you spend it scrolling social media, or would you focus on meaningful work? Would you eat junk food, or would you take care of your body? Would you avoid difficult conversations, or would you express your love and resolve conflicts? The Stoics understood that death gives life urgency and meaning. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." But Memento Mori isn't just about your own death. It's about the impermanence of everything. Your youth won't last forever. Your health won't last forever. Your opportunities won't last forever. Your relationships won't last forever. This isn't depressing, it's liberating. When you truly understand impermanence, you stop taking things for granted. You stop assuming you'll have unlimited chances to get it right. You start making choices based on what matters most, not what's easiest in the moment. This builds self-discipline because it connects your daily choices to the larger reality of your finite existence. That workout isn't just about looking good. It's about making the most of the limited time you have in your body. That difficult conversation isn't just uncomfortable. It's an opportunity to deepen a relationship that won't last forever. Here's your practice. Each morning, spend a moment contemplating the fact that this day will never come again. Ask yourself, if this were my last day, how would I want to spend it? What would I want to accomplish? How would I want to treat the people I encounter? This isn't meant to create anxiety or urgency, but to create clarity about what truly matters. When you remember that your time is limited, it becomes much easier to choose the important over the urgent, the meaningful over the merely pleasant. Principle 9. The Inner Citadel. The 9th principle is what the Stoics called the inner citadel, the unassailable fortress of your mind that no external force can touch. This is perhaps the most empowering concept in all of Stoic philosophy, and it's the foundation of unbreakable self-discipline. Epictetus, who knew what it was like to have no external freedom as a slave, discovered that there was one thing no one could ever take from him: his ability to choose his thoughts, judgments, and responses. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The inner citadel is the recognition that while external events can affect your circumstances, they cannot touch your character unless you allow them to. Your boss can fire you, but they cannot make you bitter. The weather can ruin your plans, but it cannot ruin your peace of mind. People can criticize you, but they cannot diminish your self-worth. This builds self-discipline because most failures of self-discipline come from feeling like victims of our circumstances. We eat poorly because we're stressed. We skip workouts because we're tired. We procrastinate because we're overwhelmed. We're essentially saying that external circumstances control our choices. But the inner citadel teaches us that we always have a choice. No matter what's happening around you, you can choose your response. No matter how you feel, you can choose your actions. No matter what others do, you can choose to maintain your integrity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. He was literally the most powerful man in the world, but he understood that his real power came from his ability to control his own thoughts and responses. This doesn't mean you ignore external realities or pretend that circumstances don't matter. It means you recognize that your response to circumstances is always within your control, and that's where your real power lies. Here's how this transforms self-discipline. Instead of waiting for the right circumstances to make good choices, you make good choices regardless of circumstances. You don't need to feel motivated to work out. You work out because that's what disciplined people do. You don't need to feel like eating healthy. You eat healthy because that's aligned with your values. The inner citadel makes you anti-fragile. You don't just survive difficult circumstances. You use them to become stronger. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to practice virtue. Every setback becomes a chance to demonstrate resilience. Here's your practice. When facing any challenging situation, ask yourself, what aspects of this situation can I control? What aspects are outside my control? How can I respond in a way that strengthens my character and aligns with my values? This simple practice will help you build the inner citadel, the unshakable core of self-discipline that no external circumstance can touch. Principle 10. Preferred indifference. The final principle is understanding preferred indifference, the Stoic recognition that while virtue is the only true good, some external things are naturally preferable to others, and it's rational to pursue them as long as they don't compromise your virtue. This might sound contradictory after everything we've discussed, but it's actually the key to living Stoicism in the real world. The Stoics weren't advocating for a life of deprivation or indifference to practical concerns. They were advocating for a proper relationship with external things. Health is preferable to sickness. Wealth is preferable to poverty. Good relationships are preferable to bad ones. Success is preferable to failure. The Stoics called these preferred indifference, things that are naturally preferable but not essential for a good life. Here's how this builds self-discipline. It allows you to pursue external goals without being attached to them. You can work hard for success while being prepared for failure. You can take care of your health while accepting that illness might come. You can invest in relationships while knowing that loss is inevitable. This creates what psychologists now call non-attachment. You care about outcomes without being controlled by them. You give your best effort without being devastated if things don't work out as planned. Seneca was incredibly wealthy, but he regularly practiced poverty to remind himself that his happiness didn't depend on his wealth. Marcus Aurelius had enormous power, but he constantly reminded himself that his worth didn't come from his position. This principle prevents the two extremes that destroy self-discipline, either caring so much about external outcomes that you're paralyzed by fear of failure, or caring so little that you don't put in any effort. When you understand preferred indifference, you can pursue ambitious goals with complete commitment while maintaining inner peace regardless of the outcome. You can work out consistently without being devastated if you don't see immediate results. You can eat healthy without feeling like a failure if you occasionally indulge. Here's your practice. For each area where you want to build self-discipline, identify what you can control, your effort, your consistency, your attitude, and what you cannot control, the results, other people's responses, external circumstances. Commit fully to what you can control, while holding lightly to what you cannot. This allows you to be disciplined without being rigid, committed without being attached, ambitious without being anxious. We've covered 10 powerful principles that have helped countless people build unshakable self-discipline for over 2,000 years. But here's the truth. Knowledge without application is worthless. These principles only have power if you actually use them. The Stoics understood that philosophy isn't an academic exercise, it's a way of life. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations to impress anyone. He wrote them to remind himself how to live. Epictetus didn't teach to build a following. He taught to help people find freedom in any circumstance. Your journey to building Stoic self-discipline starts with a single choice: the choice to take responsibility for your thoughts, your actions, and your character. It starts with recognizing that while you can't control what happens to you, you can always control how you respond. Remember, self-discipline isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Every time you choose the difficult right over the easy wrong, you're building the mental muscle that makes the next choice easier. Every time you apply one of these principles, you're becoming the kind of person who naturally makes disciplined choices. The Stoics believed that we all have the potential for wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These aren't special gifts reserved for a chosen few. They're capacities that every human being can develop through practice and commitment. So here's my challenge for you. Choose one of these 10 principles and commit to practicing it for the next week. Don't try to implement all of them at once. That's a recipe for overwhelm and failure. Pick the one that resonates most with you and make it a daily practice. And here's my request. Drop a comment below and tell me which principle you're going to start with and why. Your commitment in the comments will help hold you accountable, and it might inspire someone else who's struggling with the same challenges. If this video helped you understand how to build real self-discipline, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who could benefit from these ancient insights. The Stoics believed that wisdom shared is wisdom multiplied. And if you want to continue this journey of applying ancient wisdom to modern life, make sure you're subscribed to Daily Stoic Insights with notifications turned on. We're building a community of people committed to living with virtue, wisdom, and unshakable self-discipline. Remember what Marcus Aurelius wrote: "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Your journey to unbreakable self-discipline starts now. The only question is, what will you choose? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we continue exploring how ancient wisdom can transform your modern life.